We are live. Good evening and welcome to the online Metaphysical Bible Hangout. This Bible experience is an extension of Understanding Principles for Better Living Church, where the Reverend Dr. Delarice Lett is the minister and founder. Up Church is a Bible-based New Thought Christian church, and if you're in the Los Angeles area, we really would love for you to join us. Our services are held Sundays at 1 o'clock at 600 West Queen Street in Inglewood, California. Now, a couple of brief announcements. Every Saturday, Reverend Sherri hosts the Spiritual Weight Loss radio broadcast. And you can tune in at 9 a.m. at blogtalkradio.com/Sherri Speaks. Or you can dial in at area code 347-826-9368. This week's topic is Exit the Procrastination Zone. Now, Sunday, May 18th, we are so excited. I've been working on press all this week. Roma Downey, who was Delarice's co-star in Touched by an Angel, is going to be speaking at Up Church. And they're going to do it kind of like a conversation with, so it's going to be a very different kind of church service where Roma is coming, and she's going to talk about her life and her spirituality and just really the lessons that she has learned over the course of her life. And those of you who know her know that she's been on Touched by an Angel. She was one of the producers of the movie that just came out, Son of God. She also was the executive producer of the Bible series, which is the highest rated miniseries on the History Channel. They have a new movie, she and her husband, Mark Burnett, have a new movie coming out next year called AD, and you know her husband Mark Burnett because he created The Voice, Survivor, The Apprentice. Mark Burnett. So she's coming this Sunday, and we are so excited. And I do hope that if you're here in Los Angeles, that you'll be able to join us. And if not, then I know that you'll be able to watch us later and see it back on YouTube. I've got a new website up. If you want to stay abreast of more things like this class, plus retreats and workshops and things like that, I want you to go ahead over to revsherri.com and sign up for my newsletter. And I got a new class starting, and it's a daily teleclass, and it's called 21 Days of Forgiveness. So I'll just leave it right there. We haven't started putting the publicity materials out yet, but that's coming. 21 Days of Forgiveness. And I can't wait. I'm so excited. If you are listening live and you want to join in, there's a join button, I think, on this side of the screen. I always get that wrong. There's a join button there, and you're able to join into the discussion live. And if you're watching back to the tape program, you can leave a message in the comments. I get it, and I respond to them as soon as I get them. So please do leave your comments down below. If you need the handouts, we are working from Be Ye Transformed, which is a book by Elizabeth Sand-Turner. If you need the handouts for class, just email me at sherri@redsherri.com, and I will get that to you. And if you would like personal prayer, I belong to a church that believes in the power of prayer, and we have done some amazing things through the prayer work that we've done collectively and individually. And if you are in need of prayer, you can email us at prayers@upchurch.org. And then finally, if you like this broadcast, please subscribe, but also tell somebody else about it. This is one of my passions. I love metaphysical Bible interpretation. I believe in it. It saved my life, and it's why I do this and offer it as a free service, because I believe that the Bible has so much good stuff for us in terms of just overcoming the challenges in our lives. And I think that when you unlock the keys to the Bible through metaphysical interpretation, you get such a rich and amazing teaching. And so I want to tell as many people about it as possible. So I just ask, if you like this, tell somebody about it and invite them to check it out and let them decide for themselves. So this journey is rooted in Scripture, and the Scripture that we use is Matthew chapter 28, verse 19 and 20. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And so right where you are, I just ask that you just still yourself. And just relax into the present moment. There is only one power and one presence. And that power and presence is God the good, omnipotent, the everywhere present spirit of absolute good. No matter what is going on in our lives, no matter what we have come from to get to this moment, all is well because God is all there is. All is well because God is all there is. And so this moment, we take our attention from the appearance. Whatever it is that you're facing, it might be joblessness, or it might be serious family drama, or it might be a health diagnosis. Whatever you're facing right now, I want you to imagine it being in a little knapsack. And we're going to walk over to the side of the road and just deposit it. And feel the lightness that returns to your body as you release the cares and concerns. If you want to pick it up after the class is over, you can go back and get your bag. But right now, we're just going to be available to Spirit. The Spirit has something to say to us this evening, and we just open our hearts and our minds to hear it. And we give thanks and praise that we have a heart and a mind that is open to the urgings of Spirit. Thanks, God. Bless this class. I anoint this message. And I affirm that there is something here for all who have an ear to hear. I release this prayer in the name and the nature of the one that is called the Christ. I let it be so, and so it is. And amen. All right, let's get going. So I just want to go back and kind of look at where we've been. And those of you that are just joining in, you'll notice I'm in a different setting. I am in Los Angeles, and it happens that it is hot enough in Los Angeles that I am not working upstairs in my personal office. It is that hot. So I have moved downstairs where the air, I've got enough of a cross breeze, and I am not going to be burning up and sweating buckets by the end of the class. So that's the different setting that you see. This is my living room. So I just want to review where we've been, and I want to remind you of some things. So the first thing I want to remind you of is simply the key to metaphysics. You want to remember that you are everyone and everything in the text. You are everyone and everything in the text. So each person, place, or thing represents an aspect of your mind. So you're not looking at discrete individuals. There's not John and the Christ and the churches and all of these are entities or elements of your mind. And so what you're watching are different processes that are happening in your mind. And so once you understand the symbols, then you can understand what's going on inside of you. And the value of studying the revelation of John this way is that it gives us a clear method to becoming our higher selves. That is all that John is about. If you look at the literal story is John speaking to traditional Christians, or not traditional, they were just Christians. There wasn't such thing as orthodoxy and not. These were different Christian groups. But this is John speaking to Christians and promising them that if you just hold to the principles that you were taught, if you just hold to what these churches were founded on, that you will make it through this period where we are being mercilessly persecuted. And there's going to come a new heaven and a new earth. And it's going to be a day where we are living in the land of milk and honey. And things are better for us. What I do want to say is that, the book has been interpreted as if it was spelling out the end of the world. And there is no hint of planetary destruction. What there is a hint of, or a very direct pointing to, is that there's going to be a new reality. And in this new reality, we're not going to be the people on the bottom. That's what the day is pointing to. In this new reality, we're not going to be the people on the bottom. So that's just the literal story of John. But viewed metaphysically, remember, we're each of the people, right? They're each aspect of our minds. Viewed metaphysically, what we're looking at is that there's going to come a day when the ego is not going to be supreme, but the spiritual side of me is going to be supreme. And I'm going to be able to have and enjoy the life that I want without the limiting habits and behaviors that keep me locked to where I am. So everything in studying the revelation of John, metaphysically, is about overcoming the material self. Everything is about overcoming the material self, overcoming habits that have plagued you for a lifetime, overcoming beliefs that have kept you locked in a box, overcoming attitudes that have limited your potential. This is what the revelation of John is really about. So it is not about 666 and the devil and all the stuff that you've been taught from childhood. What it is about gaining self-mastery. And so last week we looked at the first of 7 letters, the first 4 of 7 letters. And those letters, remember, they're addressing churches. But what we said was that the key to metaphysics is that you're each of those churches. They represent a part of you. And so Ephesus represents desire. And, depending on how you were raised, desire was thought of as a negative thing. And so some people tried to break your desire, and maybe you tried to break your desire. It's like, I don't want anything. I don't have any desires. Whatever is clever, I'll go with that. And the truth is that we all have desire. Desire is spiritual because it is inborn in us. And our work as we are becoming the Christ is to learn to separate desire for the spiritual from desire for the material. We want to work on separating desire for the spiritual from desire for the material. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is that when you're talking about desire for material, it's never the thing itself that you want. You want what the thing represents. So a house represents security. So you're not really asking for a house, you're asking for security. And so the house shows up because that's part of your definition of security. You don't want the relationship, you want the idea of companionship. And the idea of companionship is not limited to just a personal love relationship. The idea of security is not limited to just a house. And so when you start to open up and latch onto the spiritual idea behind what you're wanting, then it comes to you without you having to grasp for it. So whatever it is that you have been wanting but it hasn't come into your expression, start looking at what am I trying to bring out? What's the spiritual idea? If I want to lose weight and I haven't been able to lose weight, what is the spiritual idea behind the weight loss? Excuse me. What is the spiritual idea behind wanting to quit smoking? What is the spiritual idea behind wanting a new car? Because if you can get to the idea, then you can have more than the car. If you can get to the idea, you can have more than the weight loss. It's the human side of us that narrows down the expression down to like a little bitty bit and says, oh, I want a new car. Or maybe you're not even asking for it. You can't even see it in your mind that you can have a new car. You're just willing to have any car. And so learning to elevate your desire to the level of the spiritual is about separating your desire for the thing and recognizing that what you're looking for is the idea. And if you will begin to form to affirm the idea in your heart and in your mind, then you will draw to you everything that is like that, that represents that for you, plus some things you didn't even know that would represent that for you. Then we looked at another area that the Church of Smyrna represents, which is life. And life is that we put life into every form in our experience. So we have life in some good things, and we have life breathed into some not so good things. And so the work at becoming the Christ is separating the life that we have breathed into limited forms. So maybe we breathe life into some toxic relationships. Maybe we have breathed life into some bad habits that really don't prosper us, but we somehow believe that we're addicted or attached or otherwise connected to it, and that we can't seem to get some mastery over ourselves. The life force only knows to go where the attention sends it. And so it goes where it has practiced going. So if we have practiced sending it into limited forms, it only knows to go there. And it's not in moments like this. These are guarded moments. We're having this very high-end metaphysical conversation, and this is great. And so we are focused on the positive. But really where the issue is are those unguarded moments. Because it's in those unguarded moments that the mind runs to the places that we have trained it to go most. And so if we have trained it to go into self-criticism, it goes there in the unguarded moment. If we have trained it to go into jealousy, then it goes there in the unguarded moment. You cannot be on guard in your mind all the time. Sometimes you got to go to work. Sometimes you got to go to sleep. Sometimes you just need to watch TV and veg out, right? You know, you need a good scandal binge, you know. And so the thing is that it's in those moments that the life flows where the attention has taught it to go. The two letters that we didn't talk about last week because we just ran out of time, and it's okay because I wanted to take the time to make it practical and drill down. But we didn't talk about pergamum, which is the word. It represents the word. This is such an important area. Our words create our world. Our words create our world. We don't want to believe it because we want to be able to trace it back to the exact word. But life is built on combinations of thoughts and feelings and words. And so you may not be able to dial it back to the exact seed thought that created the experience, but you can rest assured that whatever experience you're having, that word is dominant in your heart and mind. You can rest assured that. So what do I mean by that? I mean that let's say that you have an interest in moving ahead at work. Let's say that you're interested in getting a promotion. What you say to yourself influences how you even fill out the application and how you even look for the job. Whether or not you spread your search wide and look all over the city that you live in, even going out of state because you believe that there's a job out there for you and you're going to find it, or whether you go and send only maybe 10 applications and you figure and you don't get a job off of that, and it's like, oh, well, I guess there's no jobs out there for me. It's a real bad economy. The words that you speak either open up your world or they close it down. You know, we teach kids to go to school to get a job, but really they go to school to open their mind up. And studies in delinquency and truancy and kids that are in can't think of the word, detention halls and places like that. When you do not have, the spirit will express. When you do not have a way to let out what is inside of you, it will come out. And it will either come out in destructive ways or in constructive ways, but it will come out because the nature of the spirit is to express. And so these areas in our lives where there are limiting habits that we have locked onto, that's an area that we haven't stretched the mind enough to know how to express. And you hear this in different ways. If you're working with weight loss, that you know that that's energy that's just wrapped up in the body in that area. But that's energy that you just haven't learned how to express, and energy will express. So it will show up as excess weight. So you go to school, you study because you are trying to open your mind as wide as you possibly can, because you have all of the potential of God inside of you. And so you cannot afford to not study. You cannot afford not to read. You cannot afford not to stretch your mind. You are made in the image and likeness of God. There really is no end to you. You might be contained in a body, like there's a border here, right? There's like a hand, and there's a limit to the size of this hand, and there's a head, and there's a limit to the size of this head. And so you think that the limits of you are circumscribed by the outline of your body, and also by what your body can do. Well, this body is not flexible, or this body is quote unquote getting older, or whatever. And the truth is that there is no limit to you at all. You have the ability to soar. You have the ability to fly like an eagle. And so we study the scripture metaphysically because there are formulas in scripture that show us how to express the God potential that sits within all of us. Now, I call it God potential, but you can call it whatever you want to. You can call it the Huju or the Buju, or you can call it the Christ, or you can call it Buddha, or you can call it whatever you want to. But the point is that there is an infinite potential that lies inside of you, and your job is to let it out. And the way that you let it out is you develop your mind. Stop developing your mind, and you put a stopgap on the ability for the Christ to express through you. Thyatira, that's the fourth church. So we've talked about Ephesus, which represents desire, Smyrna, which represents life, Pergamum, which represents the word, and Thyatira, which represents zeal. And zeal, this is that area that is, this is your enthusiasm. And the thing is that you can become enthusiastic for material forms, believing that your sustenance comes through that material form. And so you get excited behind a business deal, and your salvation and deliverance from whatever you're dealing with is going to come from that business deal. Or I'm looking to see if there are any questions. Oh, thank you, Barbara. Barbara says, amen. Thank you, Barbara. You have to watch what your excitement goes behind. And you want your excitement behind the things of spirit. Getting excited by the things in the physical peter out. Businesses fail. Governments crumble. Houses burn down. Right now, we're facing a situation in San Diego, which is south of us, where there are fires, and they are burning up everything. Like literally, they're evacuating as we speak. I have a coworker who lives in Carlsbad who was just saying it's so spooky because she has a wooden roof, and she said that the smoke, like her house hasn't been touched, but the smoke is just eerie, and so you're frightened. So if your enthusiasm is in the physical, and what you are excited about goes away for whatever reasons, whether it's the person that's in office, or whether it is the job that you have, or whether it is the clothes that you have. I have this wrap that I love, cashmere wrap. Do you know the moths have eaten that thing up? So all the excitement and the enthusiasm that I had for that wrap, I had to let it go. Now, zeal for the material is that wrap for me represented beauty. If the expression of beauty for me is wrapped up in that wrap, no pun intended. But if the expression of beauty is wrapped up in the expression of that wrap, then when that wrap goes away, the mind knows a portion of the beauty has gone away. I don't have as pretty clothes as I used to have because whatever. Maybe you define your beauty according to whether or not you're walking around in a body that you want to be walking around in. And so since you are not in the body that you want to be in, it's not shaped the way that you want it to be shaped, you have decided that you are not beautiful. And so you dress and carry yourself accordingly. So you have to watch what you put your zeal into, and you have to put your zeal behind the things of the Spirit. You must put your zeal behind the things of the Spirit. So I hope that clears up last week. I spent a little bit more time than I anticipated on that, but I wanted to make sure I kind of got that in, and then we're going to keep going. And so today, well, here, let me ask this. Are there any questions? If you're in the chat, please, you can unmute yourself. Or if you have a question and you're watching on YouTube, you can put it in the Q&A. If you're watching on my website, revsherri.com, there's a chat box below, like below the screen down there, that you can put it in that way. So I do want to hear if you have any questions. Is there anything that I've said that is not clear? Is there anything that I've gone too fast over that you want me to circle back on? All right. And I know the screen is shaking a little bit, but I normally do this at my desk. Like I said, it is blazing hot in California these days. Southern California is, and if this is any indication of what the summer is going to be like, I am nervous. I am super nervous. But it was so hot upstairs in my office that I brought the class downstairs, but I don't have a platform that is high enough. So I was literally sitting on my concordance and my dictionary and a little box top. So it's shaking a little bit, and I apologize for that. So I will keep going. I don't see that I have any questions from anybody. I think I'm okay. Okay. All right. I do want to tell you, I wrote a blog article. I was so excited about it, then nobody commented on it, so I thought, well, maybe I just wrote it for myself. I just published it. I publish my blog every Thursday morning, 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And I wrote a blog on the book of Revelation, the 5 lies that you were told never to question. So I do want to encourage you that when this is over, definitely go to the website and you can look that blog up. It's called Book of Revelation. And if you just go to the tab that says blog, it'll be the first blog entry. But Book of Revelation, 5 lies you were told never to question. So I would be interested in your thoughts. Please leave me a comment. I'm very interested in what you think of that. So yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if I'm just out of my mind. I'm the only one that's just excited about the Bible. Who knows? I got a chat here. Oh, you liked it. Yay. Thank you, Alita. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So tonight, we're going to talk about the last 3 churches, and then we're going to kind of do a review and just kind of check in and see where everybody is. So we're going to look at Sardis, is one of the churches, or Sardis. But metaphysically, that means we're looking at our power and dominion. What do we really have power and dominion over? We're going to look at the church in Philadelphia, the letter that's written to them, and that looks at our love. And we're going to look at, is our love being expressed in the highest and best way, or has human selfishness crept into our love? We're going to look at the church of Laodicea, and that looks at our judgment. And are we judging according to human standards, or are we judging with the consciousness of spirit that only knows absolute good? And then we're going to do a review. And then we're going to talk a little bit about where we go from here, because we're actually 5 weeks in. It felt like it has gone fast, and we only have 8 more weeks to go. So we are calling forth a new heaven and a new earth, and we want to be sure that we are absolutely calling forth that new heaven and that new earth. So this is all taken from Revelation chapter 3 and from pages 213 to 218 in Elizabeth Sand-Turner's Be Transformed. Now, I'm just going to speak globally because I'm trusting that you are reading the text and you are following along in the text. If there's anything that I say that you don't get, that doesn't make sense, please ask a question, interrupt me, don't think that you cannot. And if you are watching this back later, if you just leave a comment down below, I will get that comment and I will respond to it pretty much within 24 hours. So unless I'm out of the country, and in which case I'm sure I have my laptop and I'll still respond to the question. So the church in Sardis. So metaphysically, the idea that we are working with and that the angel in the church of Sardis represents is power and dominion. And the letter that John is writing to the church at Sardis is to basically address the human ways that they are using their power and dominion. And so what we want to look at is what are they being accused of? Because there are some good ways that they are using their power and dominion, but there are some ways that they need to basically clean up their act. And so that's what John is addressing. And what he is addressing is their attempt to exert power over external people, places, and things. They are being accused of attempting to exert power over external people, places, and things. Now, the thing about power is that true power is silent. True power is silent, and it lies within you. And so as you are becoming the Christ and you want to start to address the power within you, you have to start to look at the areas where you are trying to control life according to the outer circumstances. I'm going to check to see if I have any questions. Does not look like I do, but hold on. Okay, I do not. So power, again, please forgive the bouncing camera movement. It's sitting precariously on these boxes. If I'm downstairs next week, I'll have a whole different solution and the computer laptop won't move. So power is your ability to accomplish and to do anything that you will to do. So whatever occurs to you to do, whether it's to start a business, whether it is to improve your health, whether it is to travel the world or to retire with enough money to live on, you have the power of God inside of you to do that. But you have to remember where the power actually is. Give me that something outside. You have to really understand where the problem is. Most of us try to exert power over external things. And so what we're trying to do is manipulate the outer. But manipulating the outer is trying to solve the problem at the level of the problem. And the thing is that whatever it is that you are dealing with, whatever it is that you're seeking to overcome, did not take place or did not begin in the physical. It began in the mental. And so you have to go back to the place where the problem was created, which is in the mind. Incidentally, this is why diets don't work, and it's why children don't do what you want them to do. If you want a body experience, a different body experience outside, then you got to change the body experience that you're having inside. You've got to stop putting your body down each time you look at it in the mirror. You have to stop comparing yourself to others that you believe have a better looking body than you. The body experience that you're having externally is an indicator of the body experience that you're having internally. And so if you want to change what's happening externally, you've got to change first what's happening internally. You cannot solve the problem at the level of the problem. And so all effort to exert control in the physical is based on a belief that the physical is primary, or the physical is foremost, or the physical is most important. And the truth is that the spirit is what is most important. God is what is most important. And so if you want to make a change, you have to make a change inside. You have to make a change in the heart. If you want a different parenting experience, you got to change outside. You got to change the parenting experience that you're having inside. Stop having arguments with your children in your head where you know exactly what they're going to say. Because guess what? When you finally have the conversation with them, they're going to say exactly what you told them to say in your head. You do not solve the problem at the level of the problem. Think of it like driving a car. If you wanted to make a car turn a corner, solving a problem at the level of the problem is like getting out of the car, shutting the door, and walking around and grabbing the tires and trying to turn the tires as if that's going to make the car turn the corner. But the way you make the car turn the corner is that you sit inside and you control the steering wheel. And then it's the steering wheel that allows you to turn the corner. So the steering wheel in this analogy is what you're saying internally to yourself. It's the word that is running through your head. And we all have an inner chatter. And the inner chatter that is happening inside of us is what is controlling and determining what is expressing outside of us. And so the first thing that we want to do is change the inner chatter. Your only job is to master yourself, to master your moods, your emotions, your thoughts, and your feelings. And here's the thing, just like you can't fix a problem at the level of the problem, you can't control a thought at the level of a thought. Just like you can't fix a problem at the level of a problem, you cannot control a thought at the level of a thought. You got to get behind the thought before it ever expresses. Just like things in the physical are things and they have weight, thoughts are things and they have weight. They're invisible to the naked eye, but they are measurable quantities. And so where you want to get to is the silence. Remember I said true power is silence. Where you're working to get to is the silence. The reason that you meditate is to get to the silence. You don't meditate just to meditate. You meditate because you're trying to get to the silence. I have a question. Yes. Alita, she said, so instead of revisioning, we should prevision. That's exactly it. That is exactly it. It is that we have to go into our hearts and our minds and we have to think out what it is that we really want. We have to go into our hearts and minds and think out what it is that we really want, and we have to live in that experience. So I think I'm glad you said that. It's that we don't revision, we prevision. And so when you are going into the silence, when you are getting clear on what it is that you want, you are going into the silence, first of all, just to get clear on what's the divine idea behind what I'm asking for. If I want a better physical experience, what's the spiritual idea behind that? Because that's what you want to latch on to. That's what you want to affirm. I am health. I am expressing at my optimum level. Now, that, depending on who you are, looks like weight loss. But that also looks like a whole lot of other things besides just weight loss. And if you focus on just weight loss, you never address all the other things, and you don't address what the weight was about in the first place. So you have to get back of the thought. You have to get back of it. You cannot solve or control the thought at the level of the thought. You can't police your mind. You simply can't. There's not. No one can. Enlightened masters cannot police their mind. The nature of the mind is to produce thought. And every thought that comes into your mind is magnetic and reproduces. So it's not like the enlightened masters don't have negative thoughts. It's that they have practiced pushing out the negative thoughts by flooding in the positive. So it isn't that you don't, I mean, we all live in the world, and there are all kinds of things catching our attention. And you know, depending on whether or not you watch the news or whether or not you read the paper, all of these things are introducing thought forms. And those thought forms are magnetic. And so depending on the diet that you feed yourself in terms of your mind, depending on the diet that you feed yourself, it determines which of those thought forms get to expand into experiences and which of them just stay and lie dormant in the mind. Philadelphia. Any questions about Sardis and power? Any questions about Sardis and power? And we're clear that our control is not over the outer, our control is over the inner, and the way we wrest control and get control is to get to the silence. All right? I'm going to assume that you guys agree. And if you disagree, put it in the comments. Philadelphia. So the sixth letter that he writes is to the church in Philadelphia. And the angel in this church is the angel that represents or symbolizes love. And what is it that they're being accused of? Well, what they're being accused of is allowing selfishness to enter the expression of love. They're being accused of allowing selfishness to enter the expression of love. There's a great, I don't have it and I haven't memorized it, but you guys know it. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not boast, all of those things, all these things that love is. Love is the great harmonizing force of the universe. It forces nothing. It allows everything to be as it is. That's that agape love, that pure love that loves without condition, that loves without needing things to be a certain way. And so that's the kind of love that we're aspiring to. That does not mean that I like you. That has nothing to do with it. I don't have to like you. That is not what it's about. But what it is about is that I see good in you regardless of how you're expressing. Regardless of how you're showing up in this expression, Donald Sterling. Regardless of the things that come out of your mouth that are hurtful, that are mean-spirited, that are ill-intentioned and meant to harm another person, I still see good in you. Now, that's some deep love. Doesn't mean I like you. It doesn't mean that I think that you're a great person. But I recognize that there is good in you because nothing is all bad. Nothing is all bad. I thought it was interesting this week. I saw Martin Luther King III was being interviewed on some program. I do not know the program because I don't watch enough of these kinds of shows. And the person who was, that's a car outside, you guys. The person who was, oh goodness, interviewing him was asking, like, kind of like, what would your father say? And your father said, my father would say, you got to communicate with everybody, that you've got to engage, that change happens when you engage. And so he said, we would even have to engage with the Tea Party. And there was like this double take that the commentator or the interviewer said, what? Like, we got to talk to who? It was on MSNBC, but I still don't remember the show. It was MSNBC, and it was like a 3-person group of people that was interviewing them. Hey, Dana, I'm going to mute you. So the 3-person panel that was interviewing the Martin Luther King III, and essentially he said, we've got to engage with everybody. That when you want to change, that you can't change and say, I'm not going to talk to these people over here because they're bad. That doesn't work like that. Love loves, because that's what love is. And so selfish love is love that only wants to love a certain group of people. I only have love for my family members. I only have love for those who think the way that I do. That's not love. Love loves. And that does not mean that we are friends. That does not mean that we hang out, because love also insists that all is good, and by insisting that all is good, causes that quality to appear uppermost in expression. I don't know if I have any questions about that. I don't know if anybody wants to challenge me on that. All right, well, we shall take that as you agree. But the thing about love and loving for the sake of love is that love is detached, that love does not hold on to anything. We own nothing in this expression. Everything that we have in this life is on loan, including the bodies that we walk around in. So the learning to love with that agape love is recognizing that we do not possess anything, including our children, or even the things that we own the deed and title to. And so learning to love at the level of spirit is learning to let go of the attachment to people, places, and things. Paul in 1 Corinthians says, I die daily. Deepak Chopra talks about it in the 7 spiritual laws for success as the law of detachment. But it is where you let go the need to have a particular outcome and you open up to the highest expression. And I think this is probably especially important when it comes to family members and loving people where they are, allowing people to express however they have shown up expressing, even when it gets on your last nerve, even when it embarrasses you, that you can have compassion because you recognize that no matter how they are expressing, that there is absolute good inside of them, and given time and nurturing, that good will express out. I am going to, I don't want to skip over Laodicea because I think that that's an important one. Laodicea, any questions that we have here? Any questions on love? Any questions on power and dominion? Okay. So Laodicea. Laodicea is the 7th church, and they represent judgment. And the question is, what are they being accused of? Well, what they're being accused of is judging according to outer appearances. Laodicea was one of the wealthier churches, and they felt complacent with that wealth. Like, yeah, you know what, we're being persecuted by the Roman government, but, things aren't fair, but we've got a measure of wealth, so we're good. And Martin Luther King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. That simply because you have a good life does not absolve you of a responsibility to take a stand against injustice. And so part of your higher self is very much advocating for a higher version, a higher vision of life for everybody. That it's not enough for me to just get my needs met, but I want to live in a world where everybody gets their needs met. And so I'm going to take a stand against the things in my world that do not reflect this truth. So those are the letters to the 7 churches. So we addressed desire, we addressed life, we addressed the word, we addressed zeal, we addressed power and dominion tonight, we addressed love, and we addressed judgment. Those are 7 areas of our lives that we need to look at when we're talking about becoming a higher vision of ourselves. And so I just want to go back over where we are, because we're 5 weeks into this, and the work that we're doing is starting to look at what are the ways that these 7 areas where we have mixed the spiritual with the physical. Where have we mixed the spirit with the physical? That's the question that we're asking ourselves. That's what we're looking at. Now, when we started out, we looked at Revelation chapter 1, and John at this point is getting a vision of the Christ. Metaphysically, the Christ represents our higher self. The Christ represents that expanded version of who we are. And the Christ in our experience runs out ahead and inhabits the place that we're meant to aspire to. And the Christ of our being sits in the place and holds the space for the new heaven and the new earth that we are calling forward. And so everything inside of the Revelation of John is about a calling forth of a new heaven and a new earth. A new heaven and a new earth means a new experience. A new heaven and a new earth represents a new experience. I'm calling forth a new reality for me. And so once we got the vision, then we started to say, you know what, let's start to describe what this looks like. And so the homework assignment we have is just to spend time journaling on what is the new heaven and the new earth that we're calling forward. What is it about? What is that? I want that. What does that look like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like? I'll get into the feeling tone of it. And then we said, okay, now what are the 7 areas that we've got to look at in order to get my heart and my mind right so that I can walk into this new reality? Well, I've got to address the word, I've got to address desire, I've got to address zeal, and I've got to address life and love and power and dominion and judgment, those 7 areas. So I want to kind of paint a picture of what we've gone through with Revelations 1, 2, and 3. We've gotten a vision, we've gotten a clear picture on what that vision is, and then we started to look at the areas of our lives that we need to prevision, thank you, Alita, that we need to prevision in order to bring forth this new heaven and this new earth. So my question to you is, where are you? Are you still feeling hopeful about the new heaven and the new earth that you're calling forward? Are you still feeling like it's possible for you, or is it feeling like a distant reality? Don't everybody speak at once. I have a chat coming in. No, judgment is not wisdom. Dana had a question that says, I'm confused by the word judgment. Is that wisdom? No. Judgment has to do with the point of view that you take toward a situation. How are you looking at something? So what are your underlying assumptions? And the problem with the church in Laodicea is that they were okay, so their underlying assumption was that there wasn't anything that they needed to do. And so the whole thing with Laodicea is that they were lukewarm. That's what the Spirit says, is that you're lukewarm. You're neither hot nor cold. You're lukewarm, so I'm going to spit you out. But you haven't taken a stand for anything. Be for something. And so with judgment, it is that you have to start to separate your judgment, your human judgment from righteous judgment. And normally those two things are like mixed up together. There's some things we're willing to look at with the eyes of the Spirit, And then there are other things that hit some pain points and some beliefs that we're not yet ready to examine. And those are the ones that we're not willing to submit to spirit. For example, when we walk into a room, we're in charge of the experience that we have in that room. I don't care who's in the room, whether it is mentally stable, spiritually enlightened adults, or whether it is a group of, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So it doesn't matter. Or if it's a band of 5-year-olds, who just had a whole lot of sugar. And we are still in charge of the experience that we have when we walk in that room. And depending on how we walk in that room and the level at which we walk in that room, we determine the experience that is had in that room. And so we can come in at the level of the Christ and be peace in that experience, or we can come in at the level of the human and go right into whatever chaos was already ensuing. And I'm assuming chaos was ensuing in the room, or whatever chaos was already ensuing in the room. Now, what we want to say is, well, those children are undisciplined. Their parents haven't taught them whatever. They just had a bunch of sugar. No, I'm in this room. And so when I walk in this room, my consciousness is a part of this experience. And whatever is happening in this room is representative of what's happening inside of me. And so if I want a peace experience in this room, then I've got to have a peace experience inside of me. So does that help, Dana, with the judgment? Okay. And one last piece about the judgment. What happens is that we want to judge and say, well, things that are happening in here are happening because of something happening outside of me. And that I don't have full control over this experience. And there's no part of your life where you don't have full control. There's no, whether you're on the job where you work for somebody and it's somebody else's company, or whether you're in your own business, or whether you don't work at all. You're always at full control in your experience. The thing is that you think the control is outside of you, so you're trying to manipulate things and send resumes and, butter up this person and buck up and suck up to that person. And the truth is that the locus of control is inside of you. And so if there's a change that you want to make, if there's something that you want to do differently or experience differently, then you've got to go inside yourself, get to the silence, and make the change at the level of the silence. You don't even make the change at the level of thought, because a thought is a thing. It's already expressing. It's on its way out into physical reality. Where you're trying to get to is the silence. So you're trying to get back of the thought. We're at 8:59. Thank you guys for, I feel like I have to thank you for giving me permission to do this from my living room. I can tell you that the heat has raised a lot cooler now. It was that stuffy heat when there's no cross breeze, but that has ended. So are we clear? I don't really have any homework to give you this evening, because what I really want you to concentrate on are those 7 areas, and really recommit. You can have your new heaven and your new earth. You can have what you are calling forward. How do I know this? Because I'm working this process too. I'm doing this process too. Part of my process and me calling forth my new heaven and my new earth is my new website, revsherri.com. That's part of my new heaven and my new earth. As part of my new reality. And so, and I should tell you, I built that website myself. I did not hire anybody to build that website. So all the things that are great about it, I take credit for, and all the things that are not great, I have to go ahead and take credit for that too. But thank you so much for supporting. Thank you for going and signing up for my newsletter. And if you see something on there that you like, please buy it, because I do have some affiliate links that are on there. And if you click through them and you end up if you want to purchase it, I don't want you to buy anything that you weren't going to buy. But I'm only recommending things that really have had value for my experience, and I think that they'll have value for yours. And so if you choose to buy something, if you choose to buy it, click through my website. That contributes to my new heaven and my new earth, and I just thank you for doing that. Dana, you wanted to share something, so yes, please, I want to hear that.
Can you guys hear me? And I apologize because I'm on the phone and the computer because I had to walk around, so that's why there are two faces. And I apologize, Sherri, because I know it was distracting until I could get the camera situation taken care of on the phone. So I apologize. You said the last part of the class was really, really powerful because I've been having some experiences lately that have really revealed that. And it's an interesting experience because going back to the detachment piece, it's very interesting. Last week, one day, I had to walk to the Ralphs. And it was very interesting just because it's a short walk. But I ended up behind this guy and this girl. And for whatever reason, I just, we all kind of walked down to the shopping center together, if you will. Not necessarily talking, but they were about 2 feet in front of me. I didn't know them, nothing. I didn't know. And we went down on one side of the street, headed east. When I came out to leave, I ended up right behind them. They ended up going to Wingstop and getting food, and they lived like a block from me. We had together walked down the street on the east side. We came back coming up on the west side, which is the side that we live, and they went down, I think, Orange, and then I went down Sycamore. And and that's not the first time I've ever had an experience like that where I feel as though I am that large, for lack of a better word, because I'm because of my experience in New Thought, I don't keep saying what are the chances that I don't say that anymore because we're all one. And it always is still interesting to me because there's such a high level of detachment to this couple. Like, I mean, for me, I'm in on it because I just am. I think that's just who I am, and it's my spirit. But then yesterday, here I go with the terrible words, I had to do a board meeting or be a part of a board meeting. And I had to really, really try to have these dialogues with myself. But to what you taught us tonight, the thoughts had already formulated. So what I was trying to do was deal with the thoughts that had already come. And I was trying to talk myself out of them. And the meeting still went, I wouldn't say downhill. It was not a positive experience for me. And I had talked to myself all day, but what you taught tonight was just very valuable because the reason that my talking to myself all day about it didn't work. Like, I kept trying to focus on everything's going to be fine. The things that I have to prepare for the meeting are going to turn out okay. And they did. But there were certain interactions that that I wasn't looking forward to. And in the not looking forward to, I'd already created something to not look forward to. And then in trying to talk myself out of it, it's too late because it's already formed. And it was just interesting to hear that. And therein lies always, and I don't know if anybody else can relate to this, a couple on the street, us moving together, I'm not attached to an outcome on that, but somehow we're all together. We're together when we go and we're together when we leave. And in the work is always to detach from these spaces and places where there's an attachment to an outcome, how to loose that. And so that's the work that I guess that self-mastery that I'm really working with, because it is still astounding to see the power of it. I passed a lady yesterday, 2 days ago. I passed her. I pulled up to the stoplight, stop sign too quickly. She ended up walking behind my car. 45 minutes later, we are at Fresh and Easy together. And now I'm not talking about a Fresh and Easy that's walking distance from my house. I'm talking about a Fresh and Easy that she had to catch the bus to. I came in my house, showered, and got dressed and drove to. And we were in Fresh and Easy together. So to anybody listening, that's my testimony about how large we are. I think I just want to really work on the thoughts. I mean, the silence behind the thoughts, because once, like you said, once they're out there, it's like a wrap. And that meeting yesterday, man. Anyway, thank you guys.
Thank you, Dana. I appreciate that. That's great. I want to acknowledge a couple of questions that Barbara put in, and I apologize, Barbara, because it didn't give me an alert that it was there. But she said, getting behind that which you hold is the key. I truly agree. Thank you. And then she said, as I have lost a lot of weight since last summer, I understand about releasing so much unnecessary mess that I have held on to for so long. It is such a blessing to work through things we hold on to that limit us from things unwanted, weight, etc. And Barbara, I agree. And those who probably don't know Barbara, but Barbara is, she said her mom was called this. I call her Skinny Minnie because, honey, she has worked the weight loss thing. I am impressed. I am impressed. I am impressed. And she took the same spiritual weight loss class that I took, but she listened, and it worked out. So thank you so much for tonight. Thank you, Dana, for sharing that. I appreciate that. And inbox me during the week if there are things that you have questions about. I should give you the homework for next week. So there's no homework in terms of like homework, but you do have to read because we are expanding our mind and letting the Christ out. So what you want to read is Revelation chapter 4 and chapter 5. Revelation chapter 4 and chapter 5. And then you want to read pages 219 to 224 in the Elizabeth Sand Turner text. So Revelation chapter 4 and chapter 5 and pages 219 to 224. So I'll put that in the Google Plus. I'll also post it on the web page on my site that's dedicated for the current class series. Thank you so much. I love you. I bless you. I release you in the love and the light of the Christ. And I just affirm that right now all the power of God inside of you is showing you exactly how to let it out. And that when we come back together next Thursday, we will be moving and hopping and popping on a different level, and we will be moving in the fourth dimension. So have a great night. Have a great week, and I will see you guys. Take care.